What was once the Polk County Courthouse now serves as the Polk County History Center and houses the Historical Museum and Library. The museum serves Polk's community through special events, volunteer opportunities, and educational programs. The museum's exhibits and programs continue to grow and change as new information and artifacts become available. On our program, people regularly hear about upcoming exhibits at the History Center. Today, our audience will learn about other opportunities to experience Polk County history. More details are coming up next on Polk Place. Welcome to Polk Place. I'm your host, Tina Mann, and joining me in the studio today are Murtis Young. She's the Historic Preservation Manager at the Polk County History Center.
Hello, Tina.
And Maria Tritt. She is the Curator of Collections and Exhibitions at the History Center. Murtis, our guests are used to seeing you on here, but we have a not a new face today, but a special guest who's here to talk about some more of the obscure things they can find at the History Center. Why don't you tell us a little bit about her?
Well, we thought it might be interesting for our viewing audience to hear a little bit about the artifacts at the History Center. We talk about the exhibits and what we have on display, but where do those artifacts come from and what do we do with them? We might imagine a big giant attic over there someplace in that building, but it's a little more than that in collecting these artifacts and managing the collection. So I thought it'd be interesting to have Maria join us today and talk about how she manages all those artifacts and where they come from.
And I'm excited you're here because I've gotten a chance to go up there and you see crazy things like big animals and things like that. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your history with the History Center?
Well, we have a little bit of everything. I've been working for the BOCC for 10 years, and the entire 10 years I've been over at the History Center, what started out as the Polk County Historical Museum and has now reorged into the History Center. And I started off as a museum assistant, and under the guidance of really helpful predecessors, the curators trained me and let me do exhibits and let me do multifaceted things over at the History Center. So when the position came available, luckily I interviewed and got the position, and now I'm the Curator of Collections and Exhibitions, which is something I just have always loved.
It is, and you do such a good job over there.
Thank you.
And you are the kind of face behind the scenes back there.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about the whole artifacts? I mean, where do they come from?
Well, anyone can donate artifacts to the History Center. A majority of the artifacts that we receive do come from local people that find things anywhere, relatives that have passed away, sales, things they have in their possession, and they call and say, would you be interested in this? And if it's something that fits into our mission statement, they bring it down. However, we have had people from all over the United States that see something that this is Polk County, and they get in touch with the History Center. Would you be interested in something that I found in another state that we think would fit into your collection? We've also had people that have moved out of the area and have, downsized or getting rid of things, and they call us, and if it's something that fits into our mission statement, they mail it to us and we accession it.
Awesome. So are these items, usually just given to the museum, or are they on loan?
We prefer donations. The only time that we take something in on loan nowadays is when we're doing like an extended temporary exhibit like Civil War or the Dixie Highway, which is what we have up now, and we'll take a loan on the condition that it's going to be just used for that exhibit and then given back to the loaner, because we just don't have a lot of space up in the third floor archive, so we are limited on space.
Those are some interesting archives.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be the criteria to donate an item?
Well, when someone has an item that they're interested in donating, we look at the mission statement to see if it's something that we can put on display that represents Polk County and that can tell a story or educate the public. Our mission statement, part of our mission statement is that we collect, preserve, research, interpret, and exhibit Polk County history. So it has to be something something that we don't have, because like I say, we're limited on space upstairs, and something that just can really, in my mind, go into an exhibit either now or in the future and tell a story and educate the public, and it's really relevant to Polk County.
That's a good way to experience Polk County history. So what is the process that you guys use to, keep track of these artifacts?
Well, it's really simple. When someone sends or brings in a donation, they immediately fill out a temporary custody form, which is where I get their contact information, a description of what the item is. And when someone brings an item and they've got the story behind it and how it relates to them, I like to get that story. So I annotate the story behind the artifact, and they get a copy of that. Once they're gone, then I accession it into our Past Perfect, which is the software that museums use to keep track of their artifacts. And so it goes into our database, it's photographed, it's either put on display or it's put up in the archives for future use. And then we mail a thank you letter and an official deed of gift form to the donor, so that way everything's on record, along with photographs of the item.
That's amazing. I know you guys, just in the year and a half that I've been working with you, you've gotten some pretty significant artifacts, kind of like Jacob Summerlin's cane.
There are a lot of items to keep track of.
Absolutely. So what are some of the more notable ones?
Notable ones we've gotten are, like you said, Jacob Summerlin's cane, which was just fantastic. I've brought some artifacts with me today that I'll show you. You just never know what you're going to get. You never know. Someone brought in Spessard Holland's pen that he wore at the Summerlin Institute. Someone found at a sale one of the few remaining documents from the South Florida Military Institute, that there was only maybe 3 in existence.
Wow.
You never know how important something's going to be until you bring it in and you research and see what you've actually got in front of you.
So what did you bring in today?
Today, I brought in something to show an example of what I mean by, educating and fitting into our mission statement. This is from a donor in Lakeland. And like I say, we tag everything and put it into our database. And tying in, it's coincidental that it ties into our Victory, Florida exhibit that we're doing now. This is a water buffalo. This is a water buffalo model, and it was designed, engineered, and manufactured at the Food Machinery Corporation, which was a factory in Lakeland that made food items. And then when World War II hit, they were asked to stop production, and they began producing these amphibious tanks that were used on many of the beach landings during World War II. And like I say, it's very important to get the story from the donor. The donor, his grandfather worked at Food Machinery Corporation during the 40s, donated a picture of the house that he lived in, which is in the 300 block of Main Street in Lakeland, which is now downtown Lakeland.
Wow.
The house is no longer there. And his grandfather brought this home, and he remembers playing with it underneath the house. So, to get the story of that is just remarkable, and that one of these is still in existence and they brought it is just, it's remarkable. And like I say, when you put something like this on display, you can tell the story of the little boy that played with it and then later on kept it and donated it to the History Center. You can tell the story of Polk County's contributions to World War II, and it's just, it's a win-win. I love my job. It's fantastic. I would not like to be doing anything else.
And if somebody wants to kind of take a look through the archives, you guys will actually do a tour of them, correct?
We will by appointment, yeah.
Yeah. So they can contact the History Center to set that up. Of course, the number there is 534-4386.
And that's also a great number to call. I prefer, if you have something you'd like to donate, please call me first. That way you're not, bringing something that we really can't use or already have something of. So that number's also good if you would like to potentially donate something to us.
Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Okay. Well, let's shift focus a little bit and talk a little bit about what's happening in September.
What's happening in September? Well, tagging on to what Maria was saying about people donating things, Our Family Fun Day in September is going to be about fishing because we just recently opened the Lore and Lures of Fishing History in Polk County. So our young learners will be able to come to the History Center on September 12th at 10 o'clock in the morning, and they're going to learn to tie a clinch knot, which is very important if you're an angler because you need to be able to learn how to tie those fishing lures. Then in addition to that, they're going to learn to make a one-of-a-kind paper plate fish, and then 11 will gather at the fishing exhibit and have an opportunity to hear a reading of McElligot's Pool by Dr. Seuss.
I always love Dr. Seuss. And then of
Dr.
course,
Seuss is great.
And then of course coming up after that would be the Lunch and Learn.
Lunch and Learn. And the Lunch and Learn is a little different twist. You know, we're talking a lot this year about tourism in Florida. So we have a very interesting speaker at the Lunch and Learn September 15th is Dr. Gordon Patterson. And Dr. Patterson has written a book and is going to be speaking about the mosquito wars in Florida. When you think about it, not much could happen in Florida until we could manage the mosquitoes.
Yes.
So that's going to be a very interesting topic for us to learn about. And of course, consistent with that, we're suggesting that our participants or our viewers take a look at his book and read that in preparation of his discussion. And the name of the book, appropriately, The Mosquito Wars, A History of Mosquito Control in Florida.
Sounds interesting. I wish they would control it a little bit better.
We're working on it.
And again, with donated artifacts and donated items, we have the exhibit that is just fascinating coming up with that's featuring vintage clothing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
That is so lovely. A local collector, Joanna Godwin, is sharing with the public her collection of lovely vintage couture covering the period about 1900 to 1920. And the exhibit features lovely undergarments and outer garments. And in addition to that, Joanna curates a tour every Thursday from 10 to 2. September 10th, interestingly enough, is the opening of the Fall World Fashion Show, or Fashion Week, and it starts in New York. Mm-hmm. So to go along with that and to commemorate that happening, we've partnered with the Cookie Jar down the street. So the Cookie Jar is featuring a very special tea event. Requires reservations, call the Cookie Jar, but come in on September 10th. Joanna will curate a tour for you, and you can go down and have a high tea.
Yes, and that you can dress up, come look at the exhibit, you know, experience that tea, and just kind of go back to a different era.
A very special time.
A very special time. So then we also have our normal architectural tour as well.
Mm-hmm, that's correct. Always September 19th is the date of that, and of course we try to remind everybody the most important artifact in Polk County is the 1908 historical courthouse. And so we try to share that and the stories of what happened in that building. So we invite you to come along and walk through the building and hear some great stories.
And it's definitely an interesting time to visit the museum because there's so many new exhibits going on right now because the Civil War, and the Civil War exhibit ended. So now there's, the new fishing exhibit, there's the clothing exhibit, there's the Victory, Florida exhibit that you have mentioned. So if you haven't been in the History Center in the last, year, you need to go and check it out. So, but I want to thank you guys both for coming on today. And Maria, it was a pleasure having you on here. And
thank you.
And I always love hearing about all the stories behind the artifacts.
The third floor archives are very interesting.
Yes, they are. The museum's collection includes natural and cultural objects related to Polk and the greater Central Florida area that represent our history from pre-Columbian to present-day eras. The artifacts on display at the museum represent individuals, cultural groups, and events significant to the region. Located at 100 East Main Street in Bartow, the History Center is open Tuesday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. For more information about exhibits and events, you can check them out on the web at polkhistorycenter.org or give them a call at 863-534-4386.